So let's talk about something that's kind of wild when you really think about it. How the tiny little habits you do every single day are, well, literally building or breaking your intelligence. We tend to think of IQ as this fixed number, right? But what if it's more like a muscle? A muscle that's getting weaker thanks to the way we live our modern lives. Let's kick things off with a feeling I bet is going to sound pretty familiar.
Have you ever been here? I mean, you can totally see the problem. You see the flaws in an argument, you see why a project at work is failing, you might even see the exact patterns in your own life that are holding you back. You've got the awareness down, but the solution? It's like it's just out of reach. Man, that is such a frustrating place to be. And it turns out, it's not just you, it's a real, recognized psychological state.
Believe it or not, this feeling is so common that some psychologists actually have a name for it. It's this idea that you're smart enough to see all the complexity and the problems in the world, but you feel like you just don't have the horsepower to solve them. And this creates this really unique kind of mental stress that a lot of us are walking around with every day.
So, what does this smart but stuck experience actually feel like? Well, it breaks down into these key things. First, there's that awareness without a solution. Then there's the overthinking, your brain just spinning and spinning but never landing on an answer. You might feel a little different from everyone else, but not really like you belong anywhere. You have these super high standards, which just leads to you being constantly dissatisfied. And maybe the most maddening one of all, you're deeply self-aware, but you feel like you can't actually control your own habits. If any of that is ringing a bell, let's get into why it happens.
Okay, so why do so many of us feel this way? A huge part of the answer, maybe the biggest, comes down to our daily habits. It turns out many of our modern routines are actually training our brains for shallow, surface-level thinking, which just reinforces that stuck feeling. Let's look at 3 of the biggest culprits.
First up, you knew it was coming, the endless scroll. Short videos, tweets, headlines, you're hopping from one thing to the next to the next. It feels like you're consuming a lot of information, but what it's really doing is training your brain to crave constant, new, easy stimulation. And that has a massive effect on your ability to focus. And this slide just nails the issue. Psychologists call it attention fragmentation. Basically, your brain gets so good at processing these little tiny bite-sized pieces of info that its ability to just sit down and focus deeply on one complex thing starts to get weaker and weaker. Your mind becomes really good at skimming the surface, but it forgets how to go deep. Next up is something we're all guilty of. We sidestep the mental heavy lifting. Instead of actually wrestling with a hard problem, what do? We Google the answer immediately. Instead of pushing through a confusing chapter in a book, we just switch over to something easier. But avoiding that struggle comes with a serious cost. This gets at a really fascinating concept called cognitive miserliness. Our brains, by their very nature, are designed to conserve energy. They're lazy. They want to avoid effort. But if you always give in to that, you stop exercising your deeper reasoning abilities. And just like a muscle, if you don't use it, you lose it. Your mental endurance just shrinks. And finally, the third big one. We use technology as an external brain for, well, everything. Think about it. When you know a phone number or a fact or directions are saved on your phone, your brain just doesn't bother trying to remember it internally. Why would it? This is called cognitive offloading. You're literally handing over the mental job of remembering to an outside tool. And while that's incredibly convenient, it means the neural pathways in your brain for memory and recall just don't get the practice they need. Over time, your own internal hard drive can get a little rusty. So you can start to see the 2 paths laid out here, right? There's the downward spiral of offloading our thinking, fragmenting our attention, and just getting stuck in loops. Or there's the upward path, the path of cognitive challenge, deep focus, and strategic thinking. So how in the world do we start climbing up that path? All right, enough with the problem. Let's get to the solution. What does that upward path actually look like in practice? Well, when you study highly intelligent people, you find that they don't just think faster, they think differently. They've built a set of rare, really powerful habits that, honestly, any of us can learn from. Here are 5 of the most powerful ones. They play out entire conversations in their head to see where things might go. They actively delay making a judgment on something so they can gather more information. They explore topics that have no immediate practical use, just to build up a bigger mental toolbox. They look for the underlying patterns in how people behave, not just the words they say. And this is the big one. They detach from their own thoughts. That's the skill we're really going to zoom in on. This last one, cognitive detachment, is honestly a kind of superpower. It's the ability to stop being carried away by the river of your own thoughts and instead to stand on the riverbank and just watch them flow by. It's being able to ask, wait, why am I having such a strong reaction to this? Is what I believe actually true? This is the ultimate way to get unstuck from your own head.
Now, that all sounds great, right? But how do you actually practice something as abstract as cognitive detachment? Well, this is where we can take one of our biggest modern problems, technology, and flip it into our most powerful solution.
The key is all right here, and it is a fundamental shift in how we see these tools. Instead of using AI for cognitive offloading to just give you the answer, we're going to use it for cognitive challenge. We're going to turn AI from a mental crutch into a mental gym. And the process is so simple, but it is incredibly powerful. Step 1, pick a belief you hold, something you feel strongly about. Step 2, you prompt an AI to become your sparring partner and argue against you. Step 3, you actually have the debate. You defend your ideas, you find the weak spots, you strengthen your argument. And finally, step 4, and this is the most important part. While you're doing all this, you practice detachment. You watch your own emotions. You notice when you start to get defensive. That's the real workout. Here is a prompt you can literally copy and paste today. You are a devil's advocate. Vigorously argue against my belief that, and then you just fill in the blank with any opinion you have. This one simple sentence transforms a passive tool into an active brain trainer that forces you to sharpen your thinking and, more importantly, see your own blind spots. So we've gone from understanding that frustrating, stuck feeling to seeing the bad habits that cause it, and now you literally have a tool to start building better habits. It all comes down to this new mindset. You have to start thinking about your thinking. And this right here is the most powerful, most hopeful message in all of neuroscience. Your brain isn't fixed. It's plastic. It is constantly rewiring itself based on what you do with it. The habits you choose, the thoughts you think, they are literally building the mind you're going to have tomorrow. Your brain becomes what you train it to be. So I'll just leave you with this. You've got the diagnosis, you have the model for better habits, and you have the tool to start training. The only question left is, what are you going to do with it? What is the very first belief, the first strongly held opinion that you're going to put to the test?